I would never do that. That's the reaction that you get from most people when you tell them that you're about to jump out of an airplane. Inside they're thinking, you're crazy. A few years ago, been a number of years now, I went to this internet marketing conference that is one of the premier events in internet marketing. And only the very best and brightest people got to speak there. By the end of that conference, I made a promise to myself that someday I'm going to speak at that conference. Well, while I was there, I met a guy who became a pretty good friend of mine. His name's Chasen. And this last spring, Chasen and I were skiing together. And he told me that he was going to take his daughters skydiving because he figured that if they could overcome this fear of skydiving, that they could do anything in their lives. Well, fast forward to my 60th birthday, and my kids thought Dad should go skydiving. Really? Why would I want to do that? Well, they kept talking about it, and I kind of kept playing along with it, and before I knew it, they had bought a skydiving package for me. I felt committed at this point. Now, I actually got this gift a couple weeks before my birthday, and my wife was like, you can't do that until after you've turned 60. just in case.
Wow.
So I didn't have to do that for a while. And the weekend after my 60th birthday, we actually had a scheduling conflict, and I couldn't do it then. So I was like, all right, I'm off the hook, at least for now. The weekend after that, it snowed. In fact, it snowed like a foot, so we certainly couldn't go then. Off the hook again. Well, this last weekend, as you know, it was 80 degrees on Saturday. There was no wind. We started heading down towards the jump site. It's an hour and a half away. It's down by Florence. We got there, and we had to wait. Now, I had actually asked my neighbor, who's in the Air Force, the night before, should I be like wearing hiking boots or something? I didn't want to like be breaking my ankles. And he's like, no, just wear some really old heavy jeans because you're going to land on your keister. I couldn't sleep the night before.
Oh.
You're just sitting here thinking about it. I was nervous. No, I was scared. Well, we finally get down to the jump site, and they make you watch this video. The video was narrated by the guy that actually invented tandem parachute jumping in the 1980s. And he's sitting there telling you that parachute jumping is not only dangerous, but you're probably going to die.
No.
He says, the plane could fail. The parachute could fail. Your harness could fail. The instructor could fail. You could fail. After that, they hand you this form, and you have to sit there and fill out all of this stuff, saying that you understand that the parachute company, the skydiving company, is not liable for anything. In fact, they're not even insured, and you cannot sue them for any reason whatsoever.
Wow.
You have to disclose all of your medical conditions and sign your life away. Then, come over here, get on the scale. Stand on the scale. This thing's clearly 10 pounds heavy. I had just weighed myself that morning. I knew it was 10 pounds heavy. But I wasn't arguing. In fact, I was like, could you add a few more pounds to that thing? Make sure that this parachute's going to be big enough. So we go outside, and my wife strikes up a conversation with the guy next to her who's going to be jumping after us. She's like, this is really the prettiest part of Colorado. I just love this area. Don't you think so? And the guy's like, yeah, I agree. I've spent the last 30 years here in a maximum security prison. Now it's time to see what this is like from the outside myself. It actually got me wondering, as this guy clearly wasn't going to spend the rest of his life being confined by the fact that he had been in a cell for 30 years. And I was thinking, how many of us are in cells of our own and not really living life to its fullest? Because we've created that. I had an employee that actually ended up being paralyzed from the waist down. And she had jumped out of an airplane also after she was paralyzed, not letting her condition define what she was going to do going forward. So my wife turns to the instructor next to us and she's like, I want to make sure that my husband and my son are going with somebody experienced. You know, how long have you been doing this? Well, I've had over 2,000 jumps. But the guy that's going with your husband, he's the one that taught me, and he's got over 10,000 jumps. Okay, I feel a little bit better now. Then one of the other people that's waiting to jump says, how come you guys wear helmets and we don't? I was kind of wondering the same thing. He says, well, it's because when the parachute comes up, it hits our head. And so we need a helmet and you don't. And besides that, we have a full face mask just in case the student decides that they need to vomit. Well, I'm watching the previous jumpers come down, landing in the designated spot. And they're just floating down and they hit perfectly in the spot where they're supposed to land. That looked pretty easy. So I'm ready. We start heading towards the airplane. If you want to call it that, it's really a sardine can with a propeller on it. We cram 4 grown adults into this space that's maybe the size of, if you put 4 of these tables together, that was the interior of this plane. It was so claustrophobic in there, I was thinking, they do this on purpose, making sure that you want to get out of it. When we go down the runway and we start climbing up, it takes a while to get that much human mass into the air, but we get up to 14,000 and some feet. And you look around and the view is just insanely incredible. To the south was the Sangre de Cristos. To the west was the Collegiate Peaks. To the north was Pikes Peak. And directly below us was the Royal Gorge. I'm looking down there at the Arkansas River that I had been whitewater rafting in before, and thinking how they told me when I was whitewater rafting that you don't need a helmet. Well, we ended up doing the whitewater swim for about 1.5 miles with rocks raging around us. And I'm trying to relax, putting myself into this almost zen-like state, saying a few prayers. The door flies open and the guy goes, okay, it's time. He puts his foot on this little step just above the wheel of the plane. It's about 16 inches by 12 inches. And tells me to get out. The door is so little, I'm sitting there crammed in, I'm trying to get my leg out, and it wouldn't, I can't bend my leg far enough to get out. And the other instructor finally grabs my leg and pushes my legs out. I'm now standing on this little platform, 14,000 feet in the air. And I look off to my right, and about from here to that podium is the tail of the plane. I'm sitting there looking at this thing, and the instructor's like, don't worry, you're not going to hit anything. You're going to drop like a rock. Says, go ahead and yell. God wants to know that you're alive. And I was like, actually, he really does. He wants us to know that we're truly living. So on 3. 1, 2, wah! He didn't wait till 3. They don't want you to grab anything.
Oh.
We did a front flip out of that plane and started tumbling towards the earth at 140 miles an hour. I looked back up at the plane as it's disappearing out of view. And then, silence. Total silence. You have this feeling of euphoria. And you just put out your arms and you fly. About 30 seconds later, the instructor yanks the parachute and jerks you back into reality. Hands you the controls, and you get to fly this thing wherever you want to, until it's time to land. We finally touched down. We actually hit a little bit harder than what we were supposed to, because I learned later that the parachute actually had a malfunction, and it didn't flare as much as it was supposed to, so we ended up landing a little bit harder. But I was ecstatic. I had actually done this thing. I had conquered my fears and proven to myself that you can do anything. Now, if you think that being in Toastmasters helps you overcome your fears, try jumping out of an airplane. That conference that I told you about, the Internet Marketing Conference, I'm speaking at it next week. I have a new book coming out this summer. This is just a proof copy. I've convinced 4 New York Times best-selling authors to contribute to it. You can do anything. Even if you never jump out of an airplane, you just need to understand that if you put your mind to it, you're capable of doing anything that you want. Thank you.